Hey there, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Revolutionary Health. Revolutionary Health is a program of the Counter Narrative Project, and you can find us here every week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You should go ahead and hit the like button. So if you've arrived here, you should hit the like button so you can come back and stay in touch with us. You can also follow our videos on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram at The Counter Narrative and on Twitter at Building Desire. So my name is Johnnie Ray Kornegay III. I am the Mobilization Director for the Counter Narrative Project, and I am joined with...
My name is David Malebranche. I am a physician, activist, and just badass person. So that's why I'm here and happy to be on Revolutionary Health. And we have a very special guest today, the wonderful Billy Porter. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, y'all.
Hello, everyone.
I've been knowing Billy for close to 20 years.
Yeah, it's probably about 16.
About 20 years. So, obviously, folks know Billy Porter now, Tony Award winning performance of Lola on Kinky Boots on Broadway, currently
Grammy too.
Grammy too. Oh my God, I forgot.
Everybody does.
Let me just make sure the kids get it right. And also the current FX show Pose, which is an absolutely wonderful show, produced and written and directed by Ryan Murphy.
Well, and a bunch of other people.
Stephen
Canals, Janet Mock.
Come on, give it. Oh yes, Janet Mock. She directed everything.
Stephen Canals is the creator. Ryan came on and boosted us up.
Yeah. So, it's just I'm very happy because Billy was down here shooting, and obviously we had some stuff going on yesterday. Yesterday was a big day for some reason. I don't remember why. And today was very rainy in Atlanta, so it's been rainy all day. But Billy was in town shooting a movie, and we had read a piece that you wrote last week, and so we wanted to actually talk about that. So I'll let Johnny kind of take it as far as what our topic is going to be today.
Absolutely. So I do, as we lead into today's topic, I do want to let everyone know it'll probably feel heavy. It'll feel heavy today, right? But we do want to have an honest conversation, and I'm so grateful that you came to join us
Absolutely,
today.
my pleasure.
Thank you. So a couple of things, right? So it's interesting that you mentioned the rain, because as I was walking in, my shirt is still wet, but I did feel like it was cleansing,
right,
and like there was going to be some truth telling
today.
And as I read your piece, so on Out, you can actually find the piece on out.com. Billy wrote a very honest op-ed, and we read it and were moved by it and wanted to spend some time talking about childhood sexual trauma and how it, of course, impacts us throughout our lives based on the work that you wrote. And so I wanted to start the conversation by asking you what brought you to the point where you wanted to write your story?
What brought me to the point? Well, I've been working on my health in relation to this, my healing in relation to this trauma for about 40 years. And, it happened at the hands of my stepfather from the ages of 7 to 12. And, I realized in the work that I've been doing, I have your body, your mind, your spirit sort of compartmentalizes each part of the process toward fully healing. And I realized that the part of the process that I'm in right now is taking all of the stuff I've learned and putting it into practice. And by practice, I mean inside of a relationship. Like, how does this work look inside of a relationship? Because the trauma shattered all of my tools before I even had them.
Yes.
So every relationship that I have been a part of has kind of always come to an end partly because of this thing, this elephant in the room that the other person was incapable of going the whole way with me. And so now I'm in a relationship. I have a husband who is present in a way that I've never experienced it before. And so the challenge has been to actually figure out how to let that in, because it's been so singular. It's been such a singular journey for my whole life because of the way the world deals with it, you know, the way and so, you know, the whole Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement triggered stuff for me. And it has set me on this really uncomfortable, like, what am I feeling? What am I going through? Like, you know, I find myself in the middle of a triggered moment with behavior that is self-punishing and almost like the equivalent of like a teenage white girl cutting herself.
Right.
You know, I don't mean to put a race on that.
Right.
I don't mean to diminish what that is.
Right.
I'm just saying,
Right.
I'm in the middle of like really doing bad things to myself and going, why am I doing bad things to myself? And so then Kristen Blasey Ford came up, and that whole charade of a investigation, and the thing that kept happening, and the thing that kept sort of, you know, just the fracture. It felt like somebody was like, what are those when you're they used to do the lobotomies and stuff. It felt like somebody was
shock.
it,
Like
like
shock therapy.
It was just like,
Yeah.
you know, this idea that because you can't remember every aspect of the trauma from 30 years ago, you're not credible.
Right.
And we're gonna laugh at you. And we're gonna completely decimate your trauma. There are no consequences. There are no checks and balances. There are no consequences. And even in this space where like people are beginning to believe us, it's like the belief of it, and you still put Kavanaugh in office is bullshit. That's bullshit. That's why nobody talks about it. That's why people don't want you, because it's like, if I say it, you're not going to do anything about it. You know, and so it was completely destroying me. And I thought, it's all venom. It's all rage. It's all self-destructive. And so if I don't get it out, it's going to continue to be self-destructive for me. So I have to just get it out, say my piece, and then figure out how to like find my footing once that's done.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned, you know, Christy Blasey Ford, because I think, you know, I work in public health and in the HIV field, and we have a lot of information about childhood sexual abuse, relation to sexual risk behavior, drug use, all these kind of other outcomes. And it always shows there's a racial disparity, or we see a high prevalence of childhood sexual abuse and sexual trauma among Black gay men. And nobody seems to want to talk about it. So when we're having, you're right, the Time's Up, the Me Too moments, what's particularly moving about what you wrote was that it was talking about us.
Yeah.
And there's so many of us that have gone through this in some way, shape, or form, and not even just in childhood, but continues on into adulthood.
Yeah.
And then the ways in which it manifests itself in our relationships. And I know you said relationship because we think about intimate relationships, but you think about relationships with family members, with friends, connections that you have, and I think that was particularly powerful. And I think what got me about it, and I know Johnny, you had a couple quotes or a part that you wanted to talk about, but the part where you were very graphically describing the size of your stepfather's dick and basically said it was like a soda can or a beer can. And I think, your point
to a 7-year-old.
Yeah, to a 7-year-old. And you're sitting there saying, like, is that the level of detail you need for me to describe for you to believe that this happened?
Yeah.
Is that what it takes?
Is that credible enough for you?
Is that credible enough for you? So it was powerful for that, because I think a lot of times we do see when Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby, and we see all these women that are paraded around, but people don't take it with the same seriousness when it's us.
And they don't take it with the same seriousness when it's a man.
When it's a man, just in general.
Oprah Winfrey had how many?
She did.
How many episodes? And I'm just using Oprah as I'm not using her as a scapegoat. I'm just saying in general. When you think about the Oprah Winfrey Show for 25 years, how many episodes did she have on sexual abuse? And it was all women.
And then she had, I think,
one
where she brought all the men.
Where she talked about the men. That's what we're living with, though.
Right.
It's one time out of every time that we discuss this.
Right.
So I don't even feel a part of the discussion.
Right.
Me Too doesn't even feel like a part of the discussion for me.
Right.
It's like with what's old boy from House of Cards?
Kevin Spacey. Yeah.
Even with that being a gay thing.
Right. It kind of got swept under the carpet. He just
disappeared. And I feel like there's a shame involved in it, and there's a shame in all of it. But I feel like there's I don't know how to describe the lack of willingness to talk about it. Or
I'm curious, and I do want to. I pulled a quote, but before I get there, I want to.
You want to tell people like where it is, because if they don't know.
Yes,
and we'll sit in the comments.
Perfect. So if you go into the comments and you're watching this show, you can definitely read the piece.
It's on out.com.
Yes,
out.com.
Absolutely. Thank you. One of the things I kept thinking about as I got further down and into it was, I want to know how this impacted. You've done so much in your career.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know how this played a role in your deciding to work as hard, because you've been doing it and working and pushing. How did this go with you as you were doing all of these things?
Well, I think speaking about the compartmentalization, for me, it was focus all of your energy on whatever is positive in your life so that you can survive. It's like I speak about this idea of, and when I've spoken about this before, the one thing that I do say, and it sounds strange, but it's the worst thing and the best thing that ever happened to me. Because at 7 years old, I understood that there was not an adult in spitting range of me, in any range of me, that could save me. There wasn't one, not a one, not a single person in my Pentecostal church, not a single person in my family, not one person could take this information and save me. So the only help me, not one person. So at the age of 7, I understood my only goal is to get the fuck out of this.
Right.
I got to get out of this.
Right.
How do I get out of it?
Right.
Oh, I can sing.
I can sing, right.
Right. I started singing and the bullies stopped bullying me. It was the singing, it was the voice, it was the talent that allowed for me to get out.
Yes.
Once I was out, and once I was safely out of the claws of whatever that was, then it was time to go deeper. So I think about like getting out. The getting out part was until about 25. then it was like, okay, something's wrong, I gotta deal with it. So then I started therapy,
Yes.
right? And then at 30, it was like, okay, what's next? You know, I'm more than my voice, I'm more than these things. I have something to say. I'm not a clown. That was the thing that started to manifest. It was like, no, y'all think I'm a clown. I got shit to say. I didn't come here to scream and holler and act like a queen for your benefit. Not that there's any problem with that, but like I have something else, you know. And so in the desire of that, you know, and asking the universe, going, I'm more than my voice. The world has to see that I'm more than my voice. I have a message. I have something to say. The trajectory of my record contract in the 90s, right? And the violent homophobia that existed in that world, right? Coupled with the thing that always saved me. The voice always saved me. And for the first time, it didn't. It was actually the opposite. People would hear me and go, yeah, it's the greatest voice, but it's like he's singing like Celine Dion or Whitney Houston. Men don't do that. You're a faggot. Shut the fuck up and go away. So the career and that thing was, I don't know, it was together that, I don't know, I've managed to just maintain my sanity.
Yes.
And completely consistently working every day to try to find the type of healing that is peaceful.
I was gonna ask, how do you think it played out, like in your relationships, like intimate relationships? You know, I talk about, you know, I tell people, you know, I think there's a lot of stuff with like daddy stuff, and you know, my relationship with my father was rocky, and I think sometimes the manifestation of looking for that kind of love presents itself in kind of your relationships, and you search for the same type of people, and then it manifests in a different kind of way. And you can talk about condoms, you can talk about anonymous sex versus relationship sex. How did that trauma in your childhood, and how you were carrying it with you, with your voice, with your talent, how did it play out in your intimate relationships?
Well, and related, there's a question from our audience related to that question, which is, what strategies have you deployed to create healthy relationships, both intimate and familial, recognizing the trauma that we experience in our communities in terms of intimate, being in love with other Black men can bring a host of dynamics that are often unspoken. So kind of speaking to what David shared. Thank you, Kasim.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have questions, I know people are already probably doing it, but if you have any questions, just type it in the comment box. We'll get to as many as we can.
I think the manifestation was that because there was a person who claimed to love me, who was in charge of me, who violated me, but it wasn't violent, which was also confusing. It wasn't violent.
Break that down.
It wasn't violent.
Unpack that.
It wasn't violent. He groomed me. He courted me. He courted me. Like I say in my piece, he courted me. I was prime real estate. Because you're born this way. I was prime. Anybody who saw me knew that I was a little sissy, as they called me. You know what I mean? So before I even understood what that meant, he understood what that meant. I believe my mother married 2 gay men. My biological father, who I truly believe was a queen, and my stepfather, who I truly believe was a closeted gay man. You know, and it doesn't justify anything, but it makes me so sad because that's where our community is. So it manifested for me in relationships in the sense that sexually, I could fuck a stranger all day long. The minute it became intimate. It was associated with somebody who was supposed to love me, and that
Terrifying.
love don't
Right.
love in the sex, love in the sex. You know, so for 30 years,
Right.
I would be able to have a relationship with somebody at the beginning. I would be able to have sex with them at the beginning. And then once the feelings deepened,
Right.
I started to feel suffocated.
Right.
And how do I, also, I roll back to not having any game.
Really?
Because somewhere inside of me, it felt predatory.
Mm.
So I'm sitting back and waiting for somebody to come to me because I don't, and I would try, and it's like, I'm gonna try, but if it's sort of like, if it's work,
Right.
I'm not gonna do that.
You're out.
Because I don't think it was conscious at the time, but I had a string of relationships. I wouldn't even call them relationships, but I would have a string of several. I would say in upwards of 12 to 20 men in my life who I would go out on dates with for extended periods of time and couldn't get to the sex.
How did you get out of that? Like, to that question, like, what strategies did you employ?
I'm
What
still employing them.
You're still employing now? Okay, got it.
I'm still employing them. It's like I'm at that place now, that marker with my husband.
Right.
And he's like,
What's going on?
what?
Right.
And I wrote that piece and he's like,
Right.
I'm so sorry
Right.
for ever and it's like, it's not that I can't get through it.
Right.
It's just, this is what it is now. Because I love you so much. And the only thing I want to do is move through this.
Yes.
So I just need patience. I just need somebody to be patient with me. I can. I think I'm at the spot now where I haven't had sex sober in ever. I haven't had sober sex ever. Within the last 6 months of my life, I have been attempting to have sober sex with the man I love. And it works sometimes, and sometimes it just terrifies the shit out of me. Because then it becomes, well, I can't perform, or I can't, because my introduction to sexuality, as I state in my piece, was through my stepfather showing me porn. I think that's also another thing in the gay community, and it's worse in this community now with the internet, but it's like, nobody talked to our generation about sex.
Right.
So we had to learn it from porn.
Right.
So now I'm working through how it doesn't have to be porn sex.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
It
doesn't
can't
be.
be.
It
can't sustain that.
Nope.
So I'm cracking myself open with a human being who is present enough, and I'm learning to ask for it too. I'm learning to ask for what I need because I'm beginning to understand what I need. I just need to lay here naked. I need to go to a yoga retreat with you and start learning what this means. What does this mean? Just what does this mean? With our clothes off or on? What does it mean to sort of hang, like my husband is like a nudist. I've never got naked in front of anybody, except in the dark, having sex. In the dark.
In the dark.
Oh,
I was just talking about in the dark.
I never had sex in the light.
Right.
I never had sex with lights on until I met my husband. And he forced me to have sex with the lights on. That's why he's still in my life.
Right.
He forced it. He was like, we gotta have some lights on. I'm like,
Billy, you are sitting here with a red heart,
Yes.
visible. Talk to us a bit about, so when we talked about those, if there were some things that you could impart on folks, just to leave with them that are kind of listening to this, that have read your piece, that are trying to take that next step, what would you say to them?
It's about you. It's about your healing. It's about finding and discovering what you need for your healing. Nobody else on the outside matters. Stop taking care of other people's feelings in relation to it. Stop making other people feel comfortable in relation to it. Fuck that. This is what happened. This is my truth. If you can't deal with it, we're done. We have to be done. Even with the people in our lives who are our family. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for me, because I had to extract myself from that world. So much so to the point we're now 25 years, 30 years out.
Right.
My sister will say things to me like, well, you don't remember sister so-and-so from the stuff. I was like, I left at 17 and I had to save myself. I don't remember anybody. It's so strange.
Right.
People will come up to me. I'll be back in Pittsburgh. People will come up to me in the grocery store, and they'll look at me, and it's like, I'm sister so-and-so. And it's like, I'm sorry. It's not you.
Right.
It's not them personally. It's I had to save myself so that I could be alive right now, sitting with you two, having this conversation that can help somebody else. I couldn't go out the other way, which is drug abuse, suicide, like all of those things. You know what I mean? Like it was like, it's too important. What I'm doing is too important. There was a reason why I went through this. There's a reason why I survived.
Yes.
There's a reason why I survived
Yes.
this.
That's it.
Yes. For us, like the stories that we tell, our lives are testimonies
Yes.
that people can learn.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And feel like they're not alone. I never felt like I was alone. But it felt like something that I had to do by myself.
Yeah.
It's solitary. The healing is a solitary journey. You can't fix it until you understand it. You can't know what you want until you investigate what that is. You can't tell somebody else what you need until you can investigate it, excavate it from your being, and then be able to say, okay, here's what I need.
Right.
Like literally, me and my husband have been looking at like retreats and like, sexual retreats and non-sexual retreats, but intimacy that, and it's literally just about finding the time to go and do it.
Right.
The body, so he came with, he's a white man, so he came with some body electric business. And you're like, I'm like, all right, whatever it is, let's do it. Let's do it. Because
Man, you set it up on there. Right.
yes, I just, but I realized I've never, like I said earlier, there's never been this.
Right.
Just lay beside me,
Right.
naked,
Right.
hold me.
Right.
If we get aroused, we get aroused. If we don't, that's fine too. Take the expectation off of it. It's not always about the nut.
Right. Right.
That's the conversation I'm having.
And
It's like, it's not always about that.
well, it always ties back to porn with that, because what you see is we see stuff on TV all the time.
Yeah,
We're
right.
like, oh yeah, this is supposed to happen this way. Like, I'm supposed to do this. We're supposed to nut at the same time,
Right.
or brother man nuts in so and so, and
Yes.
then he comes on himself at the same time. Like, that's the ideal. And then you think for some reason, if you're engaged with someone like that, and I can't tell you the number of times this happened to me. Like, someone will nut, and I haven't nut, and they're like, oh my God, you want to nut? And I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like actually, this was enough for me. So
Yeah.
I think when we do those kind of things, it does trace back to porn.
Yeah.
It does trace back to the normative things that we learned about how sex is supposed to be performed, how it's supposed to be acted out, how it's supposed to be felt. And we have to kind of like unplug ourselves from that brainwashing and say, okay, no, it's okay to lay naked with my boo, and we get hard, but that doesn't mean that I have to go down on you at that moment just because it's hard. We can still touch each other and enjoy each other and explore each other's bodies without doing that, but that has to tie back to like the trauma and everything else that we've been through as
And we
kids.
have to learn, we have to unlearn old habits and relearn them in a new way. And to have somebody in your life who is willing and interested in taking that journey with you, for me, is the last.
That's a keeper.
That's the ultimate, not end of the healing, but that's like the space where the healing really cracks open.
Right.
I'm already feeling it. I feel different.
Right.
You know. So.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Billy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No, for joining
I
us.
appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome. And so for everyone who's watching, thank you so much. And so here's what you need to know. The HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, actually has some resources. So we're going to post those in the chat so that you can access those resources. And once again, like I said, you can certainly continue to follow us here on Facebook. Make sure you like us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram at The Counter Narrative, and on Twitter at Building Desire. Yes, please join our email list. And oh, by the way, the Counter Narrative Project is nominated for Best Video Series for the Paz Awards. If you go to bit.ly/CNP Paz vote, you can vote for us, and until December 1st.
And you can catch Billy on TV right now. What's that show you're on right now?
American Horror Story.
Okay.
Yes.
Apocalypse. Episodes 4 through 8.
Okay, I want to be a warlock. You inspired me to be a black boy.
To be a black boy, to be a warlock, right?
I'm going for Professor Snake status.
Yes!
On the big screen. That's coming next.
No, I think you need to be the supreme.
Yes! Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you, Billy.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night. The news is, which I can't.
Hold on 1 second. We're going to exit before we tell us the news. We got to go down. Hold on. We still there. Hold on. Let me get it from here. Hold on. Don't do the news yet. Don't do the news. Bye, everybody. Then Billy's going to tell us some news. Hold on.
Have a good one.